Okay, so picture this. It's the late 20th century, the dot-com boom is in full swing, and a quiet revolution is starting. But not in some Silicon Valley garage. Nope. It's starting in a student's bedroom in Helsinki, Finland. This is the wild story of how a simple hobby project just exploded and ended up becoming a global phenomenon that now, kind of quietly, powers almost everything we use. And when I say everything, well, you might be surprised where it's hiding.
So where is Linux today? Honestly, the better question is, where isn't it? It runs virtually all of the world's fastest supercomputers. It's the engine behind a massive majority of the web servers that bring you Google, Amazon, you name it. It's the core of the Android phone in your pocket. It even runs the New York Stock Exchange. So you have to ask, how on earth did a free project, started by a student just for fun, end up running the entire world?
To really get our heads around this, we have to go back to the beginning. And that means understanding two very, very different people. One, a kind of prophet with a powerful moral mission, and the other, a total pragmatist who just got a new computer. Their two stories were on these parallel tracks, and they were about to collide in a way that would accidentally change everything. And believe it or not, our story kicks off with a jammed printer. It's 1980, and a programmer at MIT named Richard Stallman is just trying to fix the code on a new laser printer so it'll stop jamming up all the time. But here's the catch. Unlike the old printers, the company that made this one refused to share the source code. It was proprietary, totally locked down. And Stallman, a hacker to his core, was completely blocked from fixing his own tools. For Stallman, this wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a moral outrage. And that frustration, it sparked a crusade. He decided he was going to create a world where software was free, and he meant free as in freedom. So in 1983, he announces the GNU project. This was a hugely ambitious plan to build an entire operating system from scratch that anyone, anywhere could study, change, and share. And the name, GNU is not Unix, was this perfect piece of defiant hacker humor. And you know what? He almost did it. Over the next decade, the GNU project created these fantastic, world-class tools, compilers, text editors, all the utilities you'd need for full OS. They had built pretty much the whole car, but they were missing one absolutely critical piece, a working kernel. The kernel is the core, the engine that talks directly to the computer's hardware. And their kernel, called the herd, just wasn't ready to go. And this is where our second person enters the story. So while Stallman is out there on this deep philosophical mission, a 21-year-old student in Finland named Linus Torvalds has a much, much simpler goal. He just bought a new computer, and he wanted a Unix-like operating system to mess around with on it. He wasn't trying to start a movement, he was just a guy with a problem to solve. So on August 25th, 1991, Linus posts this now legendary message online, and the tone is so incredibly humble, it's almost apologetic. He calls his project just a hobby, and he makes a point to say it won't be big and professional like GNU. I mean, he had absolutely no idea he was basically firing the starting gun for a revolution. That humble little post opened the floodgates. And what came out of it wasn't just a piece of software. It was a totally new way of building software. It was this chaotic, collaborative, worldwide effort that would later be famously contrasted with the old, closed-off way of doing things. See, Linus's method was the polar opposite of the secretive corporate world. He released his code early and updated it constantly, sometimes multiple times a week. Suddenly, this global army of volunteer programmers started sending in fixes, improvements, and new features at this absolutely dizzying pace. And this is the moment where everything just clicks. It's pure serendipity. The GNU project had spent a decade building a beautiful car, but they were missing the engine. And Linus, this student in Finland, had just built a fantastic little engine, but he didn't have a car to put it in. The two pieces fit together perfectly. The GNU tools running on top of the Linux kernel created a complete, totally free operating system. It was something neither project could have ever done on its own. Years later, a writer named Eric S. Raymond would give this new method a name. He called the traditional closed-door software development the cathedral. Built carefully and quietly in isolation by a small elite group. But the Linux way? That was the bazaar. Loud, a little messy, chaotic, and built right out in the open by a huge, sprawling global community. Realizing just how powerful this combination was, Linus made a really critical decision. He switched his kernel's license to Richard Stallman's GNU General Public License, the GPL. And this was a massive move. It was a legal masterstroke that guaranteed that Linux and anything built using it would have to stay free and open forever.
So, with that legal foundation set, the project started getting some serious attention. The hobby was quickly turning into big business. But as you can imagine, that newfound fame also painted a huge target on its back. The project was about to face down some of the biggest corporations in the world. The turn of the millennium was just a whirlwind. In 1999, the company Red Hat has this blockbuster IPO, proving, hey, you can make serious money with free software. Then a year later, the tech giant IBM plows $1 billion into Linux development. But all this success, it woke up a sleeping giant. Yeah, that's a real quote from Microsoft's CEO at the time, Steve Ballmer. He called Linux a cancer. See, Microsoft didn't see Linux as some cute hobby anymore. They saw it as a direct threat to their Windows monopoly. So they launched this whole campaign of what's known as FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, to try and scare people away from it. But the real fight was just getting started. In 2003, it got really serious. A company called the SCO Group files a $1 billion lawsuit against IBM. They claimed that proprietary code they owned was illegally copied into Linux, and this was the direct shot at the heart of the project. If they won, every single company using Linux could be on the hook for millions, and it could have killed the whole thing overnight. This was an existential threat. But the entire open source community rallied together, and after years of these brutal, drawn-out legal battles, the court sided decisively with IBM and Linux. The claims were basically thrown out. The bazaar had gone up against the corporate machine, and it had won. Its future was secure. So, having survived this trial by fire, Linux was finally free to really grow. But here's the twist. It didn't win the war in the way that everybody expected. It never took over the desktop. No, it won by becoming the invisible, essential foundation of our entire digital world. A big part of this next phase was a shift in focus. In 2004, a new version of Linux called Ubuntu was released, and it had this really simple slogan, Linux for human beings. The whole point was to make Linux easy to install and easy to use for regular people, not just for server nerds and programmers. And the project grew up, it professionalized. The Linux Foundation was created in 2007 to act as this neutral nonprofit, looking after the project, even employing Linus and other key developers. Its top members now are giants like Google and Oracle, and, in the most incredible twist of all, Microsoft. The same company that called Linux a cancer is now one of its biggest financial supporters. You can't make this stuff up. So, what does the number 500 tell us about Linux's dominance? Well, pretty much everything. In the world of supercomputing, it's not even a contest. Of the top 500 fastest supercomputers on the planet, almost every single one of them runs on Linux. It's just total domination. So, yeah, that year of the Linux desktop that people used to dream about, it never really happened. But you know what? It didn't matter. Linux won a much, much bigger war. It became the quiet, ultra-reliable engine that powers the modern internet, our financial systems, our cars, our TVs, and the phones we carry everywhere. The revolution didn't win by storming the castle. It won by building the foundation for a whole new world right under everyone's feet. It's just an incredible story. It proves that a community of passionate people, just freely sharing their work across the world, can literally change everything, not by planning some grand takeover, but just by accidentally starting a revolution. So what happens when a hobby accidentally builds the future? You get Linux.